think at this time, issues of sustained and sustainable development and also inclusive development, they're getting a lot of attention, and rightly so, which basically signal that economic growth, while still necessary, is not sufficient to bring about the kind of change you want in the world. So evaluation has a challenge of going beyond traditional techniques, methods, and their application to issues of inclusive and sustainable growth, which is really a challenge. As an example, if we say that straight growth, which benefits people, needs to be augmented by an additional focus on the lower 40%, how does evaluation then assess projects and programs that in the first instance deliver growth, but in addition also have an eye on the lower or the more lower income brackets of the society? And that requires a bit of a matrix to include the participation of the lower income strata. Even more difficult in a way is to bring in considerations of environmental sustainability, biodiversity loss, and now climate change. And the reason why this is so important is that we are getting to a point where straight growth is not likely to be even possible if we didn't consider inclusion, that is the performance of the lower income strata, and if we didn't include the interpretations and implications of climate change destabilizing growth. So the challenge is to bring these dimensions squarely into the evaluation methods and then have results to which policymakers can respond. Well, I think it may be good to also mention at the outset that evaluation may not have made a difference or influenced in many cases where sustainability and inclusion were game changers, and our methods and approaches have not quite kept up with the needs of the hour. Then there are a series of cases where we could scale up the kind of impact evaluation has had on the directions taken. Let me give a couple of examples. One, in the area of sustainable development, the impact of environmental degradation, the impact of climate change on making natural disasters, that has been really, really striking. Natural disasters like floods and storms, they've always been with us, so we cannot blame the entire phenomenon on environmental degradation or on climate change. But if you look at Asia in particular, these disasters have quadrupled in the last decades, and its impact is much more severe. People with memories say that they've never seen anything like this before. And we did a study that connects the frequency and intensity of these disasters to man-made causes. Now, with that in mind, what changes is that rather than saying that all disasters are God-given and we cannot do much about it, and let's react when they happen, you shift to a mindset to thinking that some parts of it can be prevented or reduced in impact. And that's where evaluation comes in. So if evaluation takes on board the sense that environmental degradation makes disasters worse, then that puts the focus much more on preventive actions in addition to responding. And here, a lot more has to be done, but there are some successes that a disaster risk facility that, especially for low-income countries, that have been set up in some organizations like the ADB, or the disaster risk management work of the UN system, and some of the work of the bilaterals, to some extent private sector, they all take on board the evaluation finding that prevention today is far more important than just cure, and that is one case in point. A second, switching a bit to the climate change world, I think we have increasing evidence now that suggests that energy use is one of the biggest factors to CO2 and greenhouse gas emissions. So one angle would be that improving energy efficiency is a no-brainer. That brings benefits to everybody, really. Why doesn't it happen enough? So evaluation has shed lights on some of the reasons why even an obvious thing like improving energy efficiency is really not taking place, such as financial arrangements that connect banks to the prospect of gains that will be accrued later, but immediately you need some outlays of money to make that possible. So that financial intermediation is a result of some of the findings from evaluation. Similarly, going further beyond energy efficiency, if you say that if you want to get rid of energy subsidies, going to the big polluting sources of energy like fossil fuels, that will have benefits. Some people will lose. Those who are the lobbies of coal, for example, will lose, but nevertheless, society gains much more. If that's a convincing finding from evaluation, actions can follow. India, Indonesia are examples where energy subsidies to fossil fuels have been reduced in recent years, and that's a partly a result of evaluation as well. Going further, if you want to argue that not only energy efficiency, not only avoiding of subsidies for highly polluting sources, but in addition also cleaner forms of energies like renewables need support. And if you want to give special support for that, that is justified, that too can come from an evaluation that shows the benefits down the road of having cleaner sources, and that effort needs to happen going forward. I think in two ways evaluation is falling short or needs to go much further. One, just the incorporation of these so-called spillover benefits and costs to society than just what a project does. That incorporation of these considerations needs to go further so that when you make a decision you have a fuller picture. So that's one. But a second part where we all fall short, and I don't want to say this is just an evaluation issue, is to look at the political economy side of it. It is one thing to say, look, okay, we need to look at the bigger picture and see what needs to be done. But it's another to ask, why isn't it being done? And what do you need to do to make that happen? Who are the winners and losers? How do you get the political process to focus on it? Especially when some of the gains come beyond the electoral cycle of the current politicians, who are certainly more impressed by taking an action for which you can immediately show a result, and less likely to do so if the results come in the next cycle. And so the political economy needs to be incorporated as well. So on both counts, the technical and the political, social-political side both need to go much further than it is currently.